Okay, let's begin. We have an hour until 7:30, and I imagine a lot of information to pack into it. I'm Debbie Schmeeding. I'm co-president for the League of Women Voters of Athens County. Thank you all very much for coming, and thank you especially to our two candidates for Athens County Treasurer, Dawn Deputy and Taylor Sappington. We hope to get some really good information from them by way of your questions and media questions. Our moderator will explain that in a bit. The League of Women, I'll give you a little blurb first. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization, 103 years old. We do not support candidates or parties, but we are very hardworking and passionate about public policy in general, and also voting rights and voting access. Two of our long-standing bread and butter sort of products are our voter guide, which can be found at vote411.org, and it will be printed in the Messenger within the next week or so, next week. And also our candidate forums, such as this one. And speaking of candidate forums, I want to tell you that and compliment the OU Student Senate. They will be putting on a forum for the 95th House District, Micah McCary and Don Jones candidates, next Tuesday, October 8th at 5:30 in Bentley 236, which is at 4 President Street. Okay, thanks. So just a quick reminder, time is getting short. Next Monday is your last day to register to vote or to change your, to update your voting registration. So please be aware of that. If you're going to vote absentee, we highly recommend that you get right on it. Request an absentee ballot application from the Board of Elections. Fill that out, turn it in, and then you'll get your ballot mailed to you, and then you need to mail it back. So rather than count on the post office being very, very quick, earlier is better. But tonight we have John Howell, who is our moderator, experienced moderator for the League, and I'm going to turn things over to him, and he will explain how things are going to go from here on in. So thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Welcome all to this candidates forum. I'll begin by explaining the forum procedures, which each candidate has agreed to in advance. So tonight's forum will include an opening statement by both candidates, then a question from each of the 3 media representatives that we have present.
I'm not sure you can be heard.
Just speak up.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so opening statements, then questions from each of the media representatives, then questions submitted by you, the public. We invited questions to be submitted online, but we have none that were submitted, so we're depending on you all to ask the questions to essentially facilitate the discussion to take place. And then following the questions period, we'll have a closing statement from each candidate. So the candidates will have 2 minutes for their introductory statement and 2 minutes for their closing statements, but 1.5 minutes to respond to each of the questions. Okay? And there are no rebuttals, to answer the questions. Right. So the order for speaking will rotate, and I will indicate who speaks first. The candidates can see our timekeeper seal right here, who will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining, 10 seconds remaining, and then when time is out. Okay? Now, if a candidate continues speaking, I will say thank you and move on to the next speaker. Candidates are invited to share their qualifications and experience and to talk about their plans and proposals. Candidates are asked to focus on topics relevant to the stated question and raising and to avoid personal attacks and raising issues that are unrelated to the office being sought. And if they go outside these guidelines, I may stop them to remind them of the guidelines. Audience members, your responsibility. Turn off your cell phones, please, as a starter. And please remain quiet throughout the forum, no clapping, cheering, or calling out. But after the closing statements, you're welcome to applaud both of the candidates. We received, well, we didn't receive questions by email prior to tonight's forum, which I've already said, so we will go on to the questions coming from you who are here. So you're encouraged to submit questions on the provided paper sheets and the pencils. Remember that the questions must be answerable by both candidates, okay? And must apply to issues or qualifications for the particular office that is being sought. Raise your hand if you'd like another paper or to have your question collected. And please make sure your questions are written legibly so your question actually can be asked. All questions are reviewed by the league panel here, and the panel removes any questions that cannot be answered by both candidates or are statements rather than questions. So it's questions that we're looking for. And they remove questions that are simply duplicates of other questions. So we'll use as many questions as time allows, striving to cover a variety of topics. We may not have time to use every submitted question. So now we are ready to start with the opening statements. And Dawn Deputy, you may speak first. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, everyone. My name's Dawn Deputy, and I'm proud to run as an independent write-in candidate for the Athens County Treasurer. Our county deserves a treasurer who is experienced, trustworthy, committed to transparency and managing our finances. With over 25 years of experience in accounting, I have a strong background in overseeing budgets, improving financial processes, finding cost-saving solutions. My goal is to ensure our county's financial health. If elected, I will prioritize the taxpayers by being a full-time, hands-on treasurer with an open-door policy for both local officials and residents, something that has been lacking in current administration. As a neighbor, mother, and community advocate, I am committed to keeping taxpayers informed of their money is being spent. I will work to secure our county's financial stability by exploring new revenue sources and making smart investments. In closing, with my experience and dedication, I believe I will bring a fresh perspective approach to the role of the Athens County Treasurer. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to earning your trust and support.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Taylor Sappington, the Nelsonville City Auditor, and I want to say a few thank yous. Thank you to the League for putting on another great event. In fact, one of the primary drivers of democracy in Athens County is the League here, and I appreciate them putting this on. I want to thank the members of the community here, members watching from home or live stream, members of the press, and then actually I would like to thank Dawn as well for running. When I came out of the primary this fall, it would have been an unopposed race, which is honestly a sham in any race. It's a shame, I should say. And we deserve candidates in contrast, and so thank you for running. So I'll start with, I was raised in Nelsonville, graduated from Nelsonville York High School, and went to Ohio University twice, as I like to say, twice a Bobcat for my bachelor's and my master's in public administration. Served on Nelsonville City Council from 2015 to 2019, where I then took over as city auditor and have been in that position since. I'm really excited to be running for county treasurer for a number of reasons. It's an important time for the county. It's an important moment of transition for the seat. And I've found in my experience in government that moments of transition are the most important moments in that seat and in that office. And so we have to get this right. And I would really like the opportunity to be that person to help get that right. But I'd also just like to take both my education and, frankly, my experience in Nelsonville, where we took on a bad census and recounted the city and made it back to a city status. We've turned deficits into surplus. We took on corruption and beat back theft multiple times. And frankly, have done the job and done it well in my office. And I want to take that track record and can-do spirit to the treasurer's office.
Okay, thank you both. Now we move to the question and answer portion of the forum, and the candidates will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question. And if you need a question repeated, let me know and I'll be happy to repeat it. So let's begin with questions from our media representatives. So first, let's start with Haley Richardson from WOUB, and if you'd like to take the microphone and pose a question for the candidate's consideration.
Hi. I was wondering, because neither one of you...
Hold it very close to your mouth. So
Is this better?
That's better.
Okay. I was wondering, as both of you are in a race where neither one of you are incumbents, what is the most important thing you want voters to take away from your appearance?
Okay, so the first question will be answered by Taylor Sappington.
Excuse me, did everybody hear the question? I did not. Can you try it again and practically swallow that thing?
In a race where neither one of you are incumbents, what is the most important thing you want voters to take away from your appearance tonight?
Okay, so Taylor, go ahead.
Great question. Thank you for it. So the number one thing I want voters to take away from tonight, from my candidacy, is something I've talked about actually since in the midst of the primary earlier this year. With my experience in City Hall, with multiple years in a fiscal office and as a fiscal officer, being chair of the Finance Committee on City Council, serving through multiple, frankly, coming up on a decade worth of budgets at City Hall, and being one of the point people in not just turning around the finances at City Hall, but also taking on bad behavior, bad government, and bad actors. I want folks to know that I have the experience to do the job on day one. I think my track record shows I'd be good at the job. And I think if I can make an understatement, if anybody's up to date on current issues in Athens County, Nelsonville City Hall can be one of the most challenging environments to get good work done, bar none. And despite those challenges and despite arguments and despite so many other things, I've worked with folks of all parties, of no parties, and frankly, folks who don't even care about politics, to get stuff done and to get it done well, right, and fast. I think that those skill sets will serve me well as county treasurer. I will serve the community better to have a treasurer who's used to doing hard work in hard environments, and also somebody who has a lot of public face time and can work well with the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dawn?
I guess what I want you guys to take most from my tonight is that I feel over time the listening of the taxpayers has gotten lost. With the current administration, there's nobody there to, if you have any concerns, and I want to be a full-time employee. To me, the taxpayers is who votes you in. That's who you're working for. You need to listen to them, see what they need. But also, while you're doing that, you are in charge of the finances of the county. You need to be able to do budgeting. You have to be able to have cash flow. There's all kinds of, how do I word it? Like listening to concerns, being able to budget. And like I said, Taylor, yes, has been in the government longer than I have currently. I have worked before in the government as a fiscal officer for the sheriff's office. So I am aware of how to budget, how to meet budgets, and to come in under budget, which I've done every year that I was the fiscal officer. But I want to make the taxpayers the number one priority is what I plan on doing.
Thank you. So the next question will be offered by Olivia Gilliland from the Post, and in answering this time, you'll go first, Dawn.
Hi, thank you for being here tonight. I'm looking forward to learning from you both. This is a big year for elections, and I'm just curious why you both think that this race and your candidacy pose issues that residents should be focused on. There's a lot to be considered at the moment.
I think with any election, there's always going to be different issues for every different office. Obviously, the office of the treasurer is all about finance, the county's fiscal outlook to make sure everybody is taken care of, to make sure, one, we have the cash flow. We have investments that are actually working for the county. So for say, not the only feedback I've heard from county of people that's come and talked to me is more about the fact, not really worried about the fiscal outlook of the county, but more of being there to listen to their concerns of the citizens of, like I said, I had one gentleman stop me and said he'd been there to the office multiple times to talk to Rick, and he's never there. I don't know how Taylor runs his office, but I assume he's there to listen to his people. And that's what I plan on doing too, is be there, listen, be an advocate for them, help them too. If they're having trouble with their taxes, find other avenues for them to be able, there is other avenues out there to help them meet their obligations.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I apologize. Could you just repeat the question for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just curious, this is a big election year. Why should residents be concerned with your race and your candidacy specifically when there are so many big issues on the table?
Well, that's a good question. And there are a lot. I just pulled up the ballot. They just got the sample ballots up on the Board of Elections site, and it's a long ballot, at least for my ward in Nelsonville. I assume the rest of the county as well. So there's a lot going on, and frankly, there might be some folks who don't either understand or aren't excited about the treasurer's race way down at the towards the bottom of the ballot. But there's some important reasons why they should care, right? So everybody, whether you're renting or you own your home, is going to owe taxes on that property. You may just pay it indirectly or directly. And frankly, we want to make sure that folks like our county office holders have, and frankly our communities, have a treasurer's office that is getting the job done well, quickly, and efficiently. If there's one place on the ballot that we don't need a revolution, it's probably the treasurer's office. We don't need to change the whole thing, especially property tax collection is an old science. But unfortunately, things can atrophy, and especially at times of transition, like I brought up earlier with a different office holder, we want to make sure that good things keep going. We start new good things, and folks can just depend on their taxes being collected fairly, efficiently, and then, of course, on behalf of the communities, collected well and fairly. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the third question from the media will be offered by Ann Miller from the Athens Messenger.
Hi, I've spoken with you both a little bit before. And on that note, I want to hear a little bit about how both of you intend to use the land bank or maybe shift how the land bank works in the favor of the citizens in the county. Thank you.
Yeah, Taylor, you do first this time.
So this is a really good question. How do we intend to impact the land bank as treasurer? So one of the things I'll say is that as a council person in Nelsonville way back in 2017, which feels like forever ago, but I suppose wasn't that long ago, I was really proud to be one of the co-sponsors of an effort pushed by somebody who's unfortunately now passed away, Mr. Ed Mash, who was council president. He really believed in the land bank. He had met with commissioners, he'd met with the treasurer at the time, and he said the land bank can transform our community and take what we call in Nelsonville blocks of despair, properties and blocks, entire blocks that have just dilapidated due to folks passing away, the drug crisis, a million reasons. The land bank can help transform those things. And so I was really proud to join his effort, learn from him, join him, be one of the co-sponsors, and be the first entity outside of the county to support the land bank. as treasurer, what I want to make sure to do is be a good caretaker, be a good board member as the treasurer sits on the board. It's not just the treasurer, but I want to be a good active member. I want to assist the other board members in helping achieve their goals, but I also want to make sure that it's growing in a way that it can continue to impact communities like, well, Nelsonville, but also Gloucester, Albany, the Plains, so that it has a future, because I think it's an important part of Athens County now, but also its future.
So for the land bank, it has its time and place for what purpose it is for. To, like he said, better the communities with getting the abandoned buildings taken care of properly, to maybe make them again revenue producing for tax purposes, or if needed to be, that they're beyond that, torn down and make their space available for new things, so that way we can get more tax revenue in. Like Taylor said, it's all about knowing how to help the whole board of people. It's not just one person that runs the land bank. It is a group of people that have to meet with similar goals, and that is to make Athens County better.
Thank you, Dawn. Okay, now we go to questions from the audience. And the first question, we have two questions that are similar, and let me ask the question this way. There are two offices in the county which deal with finances, the treasurer and the auditor. So the question is, explain to us all here, what are the responsibilities of the treasurer as opposed to those of the auditor? So Dawn, if you want to go first on this one, that'll be good.
So the responsibilities of the treasurer itself is, we've touched on a couple of times already tonight, is collecting the property taxes. Not only is it for homeowners, but trailer, there's dog tags, there's all kinds of revenue out there, but the treasurer's office itself is in charge of bringing in all the monies, getting them deposited, getting them to the right accounts, distributing all the funds to the different entities. Like, so when we collect taxes, it's for different purposes to make sure that it is allocated to the right purpose. Like, I know in Alexander, my property taxes actually has Alexander school tax. So as the treasurer, I would take that portion of the tax to make sure Alexander sees it. So you got to make sure when you're bringing in the monies it goes to the right accounts. Also, the other thing is, one of the way to make revenue is through investments. So we got to make smart investments, work with the auditor's office and even the other commissioners and stuff to make sure we are investing properly and safely.
Thank you, Don. Okay, Taylor?
I did, just in case she wanted pointed out, we did have one more member of the media, Carrie Johnson from The Independent, if she wanted to throw a question in later. But anyway, I just want to bring your guys' attention. So if Carrie, I'm sure Carrie has questions if I know Carrie. Oh, okay. Back to the original question. I'll start by saying what the treasurer doesn't do. The treasurer doesn't not set your property tax rates or how much you owe or your property value. The first step in that is actually the voters. The voters set the millage primarily for your communities, which is the tax rate set on your property value. The county auditor's office appraises the value, assesses the tax that the voters approve, and then the treasurer is required to collect those taxes. So there's a couple of moving parts there, but I will start by saying the treasurer doesn't set your tax rate or assess it, but is responsible for collecting it to divide up the duties and make it safer. Some of the other important things the treasurer and the office does, specifically the position, will be to sit on the board of revision. So if you have a problem with appraisal, if you're asking for penalties to be taken off, or a number of other challenges you might have, It's important to have a good board of revision, of course, but on that board sits the treasurer, and I think it's important, at least in my experience, to have good public officials who listen and will give you the answer you need, not necessarily the answer you want. And on the board of revision, that's prime territory for that, and I'll be proud to sit on that board as well. And I know I'm running out of time, but the treasurer also sits on the budget commission and the land bank board, which when I have more time, we'll talk about.
Good. Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. You've talked about the responsibilities as tax collector, which treasurer is. Another major responsibility is kind of the banker of the county in terms of taking care of its investments. So the question that's been submitted here is, many people are concerned about how investments affect the environment. Should you take this into consideration when investing the county's money? So Taylor, you're first this time.
So this is a good question. I don't know if everybody could hear specifically the environment, but I assume we could ask more broadly. Other
Sure.
issues be considered when the county invests its funds, and consider how those issues are impacted by them. So this is a really good question, because a number of us, including myself, when we have chosen investments and say our personal retirements, you might have an IRA or a number of other things, you can now, in a lot of places, choose an investment mix that keeps that issue in mind. One of the issues with this would be how the state legislature dictates investments in the state of Ohio. So actually, it's a very narrow lane that government entities can put their monies into. They do let you to sometimes, with permission, get out into things like commercial paper, which would be companies, and that would be more what I would think you would want. That's more the territory I would think that issue-based investing would be important on. But primarily, the governments are required, including places like Nelsonville and Athens County, pretty standard certificates of deposit, interest-bearing accounts, government debt, the boring stuff. So if I can say the boring stuff, but it's for a good reason. They want your tax money to be completely safe in all instances.
All right. Thanks, Taylor. Dawn?
Like Taylor mentioned, the treasurer's office, when they go to invest, they have rules and regulations they have to follow that sets by the state. So we do have a lot of guidelines that we have to follow to make it safe. So while we do all that, we also need to take the investments to make sure as they're needed for revenue, that we're responsible to also meet the county's cash flow. So therefore, we have to make sure, while investing smartly, there's still enough cash flow, monies in our accounts for cash flow to meet our county's obligations at any time. So one of the ways I plan on doing is I would make sure all the cash time, to do real-time cash management to ensure that we are able to invest as much of our county dollars to make revenue as we can without hurting the cash flow.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, ready for another question. Well, this is a little different. This question is, how do you deal with conflict? How do you deal with difficult people? So Dawn, you can go first with this one.
I think we all deal with difficult people every day. At least, I'm sure in Taylor's position at the auditor's office, as being a business owner, you always have somebody that you can never make happy. And sometimes you get those people on a daily. Sometimes hopefully you only get them once in a blue moon. But usually when it comes to conflict, actually I just had an incident yesterday at our business, and I had to de-escalate the situation with the young lady. She didn't understand what her car was doing, so she was frustrated. So I talked her down, and it's like, you just need to understand. I offered to let her see the process that my mechanics had to do to assess her car so that way she could see in real time, because some people are more visual. I'm a visual person. Therefore, if you see how we're doing something, then you're more apt to understand it. So with conflict, I think that's one way is open communication. Ask them what they need to make it okay in their eyes, and see if it's something you can meet realistically. And then hopefully it's a good outcome for everybody involved.
Thanks, Don. Taylor?
This is a really good question because there's never any conflict in government, right? So, there's kind of two things I want to say about conflict and how I deal with it. One thing I'll build on, actually, because I think Don has exactly right, which is open communication. So one of the things I do with, for example, new employees or maybe just new folks coming into the orbit of City Hall, whether it be contractors or something else, is when they're signing up, getting their paperwork done, and working with my office, as I tell them, one of the things I tell everybody, I say it just like that too, one of the things I tell everybody is that I have to give you the answer you need, not the answer you want. And I think I said that earlier, and I start that out by saying, I start out that relationship by saying that because I want them to know that someday when they think they're really entitled to, say, 100 days off or $100,000 or some other, I'm being dramatic when what I'm saying, but when they think that there's something that they're supposed to have, and I have to be the one, right, to tell them, actually, no, that number's not correct, and here's why. I want them to at least know from the start that I've communicated, I'm going to give you the answer you need, that you got, not the answer you want. The other thing is really close listening. And I know I'm running out of time, so I'm going to come back to that too. I got to talk less, I think.
Okay. All right, let's see. You both responded to that one. Okay. So here's an interesting question. So I guess, Taylor, you'll go first on this one. How do you deal with people who don't pay their taxes?
So the question, how do you deal with folks who don't pay their taxes? I want to finish my answer before, it's not entirely irrelevant, which is dealing with conflict. And also, sometimes in cases like this, I go back to a phrase that I actually have no idea if this is true history of the word. Maybe one of the reporters can tell me later when they fact check our statements. But I was told by another auditor in the state that the root word of auditor is shared with auditory. And they told me, my only advice to you is a good auditor is a good listener, not a good talker. And so the reason I think it's kind of relevant to folks who need to catch up on their taxes is because in many cases, you just need to listen. Usually we're just dealing with half information, especially when it comes to property taxes. Has the person passed away? Have they moved on to a nursing home or moved on permanently beyond this life? We need to understand what the situation is there, and are we contacting the right person? If all we're doing is mailing the bill and using taxpayer funds to continue mailing the same bill to the same person who is deceased, has a person actually earned their salary for that day, or are we just doing what we did last time all over again because we did it last time? And so that's why I think it's kind of relevant. Do we need to listen and have the information that we need to make the right choices, to make the right decisions, and frankly, to make sure we know what we're dealing with places or individuals behind on their taxes?
Don?
I think Taylor has touched on it, but one thing is to reach out to the taxpayers, the property owners, to find out if there's a reason behind. Did they receive their bill in the mail? Do we have a good mailing address? Is there other underlying circumstances that's going on, such a situation could be, say, in an elderly couple, most likely the husband took care of the bills all the time and he passed away, and the female doesn't know what is expected. We need to help her explain her obligations, help her find the means. Another thing is, what if somebody through that year came disabled, has lost their income? There's ways out there to help them and there's ways to seek to advocate for them to be able to help them pay their bills. Not that they don't owe it, because yes, they do owe it. That is actually how our county runs, is off of taxpayers and property taxes and stuff. But instead of just being cruel to them and taking their property, we got to work with them, listen to them, and help them be able to meet their obligations.
Good, thank you. Okay, so I have one more question in my hand here, and then we'll come back to the people from the media if you would like to ask any further questions. So this is a sort of a personal question. It may be something you anticipate answering in your concluding statement anyway, but I'll ask it here. What motivates you to be a public servant? So Dawn, I guess you can begin here.
Probably not too many in this room know who I am, but knows that I've actually helped serve the public for multiple years already. I'm actually a volunteer firefighter for the Plains Fire Department. I've been the treasurer, for the fire department. I've been the youth, my kids, all the time they grew up, I was the treasurer of all their league stuff. I was always not the mom that sat on the sideline. I was the mom that was doing everything, running around like your head's cut off. I've also, like I said, at one time I did work at the sheriff's office as a fiscal officer, so I have helped there. I do a lot of fundraisers for different community reasons and fundraisers and stuff. So to me, this is just another way to meet with the county residents and be there for them and help them and advocate for them. So I feel that this is just the next step for me.
Thank you.
What motivates me to be a public servant? So this is another really good question. I'm going to try and shorten it because I've got a minute and a half. The first thing I'll say is, frankly, she's in the audience, my mom. So my mother served state government for 17 years. She was a Spitfire firebrand in the union, the first group to unionize the administrative workers for the state, and kind of had to be the only lady walking into the room. All the other guys walked in with flat shoes, and she walked in with the heels clicking, right? And she had to go toe-to-toe with them. And frankly, from what I've heard around the state, she did. And she did that because she believed not just in democracy, which I'm passionate about, it's my top issue when I vote on other races. She did that because of the people she works with, yes, because it's right to fight for workers. But frankly, she did it because she cares about people. And when she raised my brother and I, she unfortunately imparted that same care into him, my brother, and myself. And so I care about people, and I think they deserve good things. I think they deserve people who will fight for them, even when that fight is a losing one, and you know you're going to lose, and it might be unpopular. Fights like that I've lost many times, and maybe a few folks have read about in the papers once or twice. But the good fight is the right fight, and it's the right thing to do. And that's why I'd like to be, I am a public servant, and that's why I'd like to be treasurer as well.
Thank you. Now, are there additional questions that anyone from the media would like to pose at this time?
Yeah, I know you've touched on a couple of different things that you've worked on in your respective government positions, but I'm just wondering, is there any specific initiative or issue that you had to address while working in government that kind of speaks to your ability to be the treasurer of Athens County in particular?
Let's see, I guess you're on first, Taylor, this time.
If I got the question right, is there an issue that we've worked on in the past that speaks to, okay. Yeah, so I think this is a good question. I think I'll answer with a broad brush, if that's okay. I'll just say that my time as a member of the Finance Committee in Nelsonville, as later the chair of the Finance Committee, I proudly wear on my sleeve that I actually was later bumped from the Finance Committee in a political fight because there was an effort to spend 6 figures that the city did not have I was the only council person willing to say that we didn't have it. I said so, and they bumped me from the committee for doing just that. I've since run for city auditor, won by 30 votes, which was a long night, and then worked for 5 or 6 years, 5 years to, balance the books, collect the taxes. The utility office is in there. I'm the manager of the state audit at City Hall. We do payroll, we do delinquencies, tax assessments. We kind of do everything. And although that's maybe not good division of fiscal authority, it's a nature of working in a small town with not a lot of resources. We just get the job done, and we try to do it great. I think all of that experience will serve me well as treasurer, particularly working in a challenging environment, balancing relationships and policies. I think that'll serve me well when working with what is really a very broad county government.
Thanks, Taylor. Go ahead, Dawn.
I hope I remember the whole question completely. But my time that I've already worked within the government offices, things that what stands out most to me is budgeting. When I would present my budget to the commissioners, I would have every T crossed, every I dotted, to where they even asked me, did I forget it? Because everything was there. That is the root of the finances. You got to be able to plan for the unseen. Sometimes you don't have to have that, and that's great. But then if you don't plan for it, then that's when you probably most likely need it. So my main thing, like I said, being able to budget and budget accordingly that is needed. Being able to find different avenues for revenue is going to be a very big thing as well. So that way that, hopefully we can actually make Athens County even continuously better.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know we've covered a lot tonight, so I have a bit of an odd question for you guys, but I think you both heard me say it at the end of my interview. Is there anything else that each of you would like to add about your candidacy, something that you'd like to bring up in particular to the public that you maybe haven't gotten to speak on yet?
The main thing about my candidacy I need to really put out there for myself is that I am running as a write-in candidate. Therefore, my name is not actually on the ballot. So for somebody to vote for me, they actually have to physically write my name. So when you see the ballot, it'll say Athens County Treasurer, it'll have Taylor's name, and then a blank line. So for those who want to vote for me, they have to physically write my name and, of course, color in the little bubble, because that counts too. So that is one thing that I am trying my hardest to get out there, because a lot of people don't know that there's a write-in candidate. And as you go to the polls, the workers are not allowed to tell you until you ask them. You have to ask, and that's why I encourage anybody that walks in there, just open the conversation right away. Is there any issues or write-in people I need to know about? That opens a door, and they can then talk to you about it, because until you ask, they're not allowed to talk to you. So even if I wasn't on it as a write-in, or we don't have any, it's still something that you need to, just like I said, open the doors for communication, so that way people know what other issues and what other write-ins out there. So my main thing, like I said, right now, not only just about being able to do the job and do the job well, is the fact that how I'm running is as a write-in candidate, and that is important that they have to write my name.
Something that hasn't been brought up that I hope the voters take away is one of the things I totally didn't expect when I ran for auditor, that this would be one of the most, in fact, at this point, the most important day-to-day issue I work on in the office, and one of the most important to me personally has been management. So I manage a staff of 3, and one of the things I've found that I really, really care about is the success and the future of the employees. I mean, we spend ostensibly we spend a third of our lives with these folks, right? And they spend a third of their lives at that job, and it's public service, and it's difficult, and in many cases underpaid, especially for their skill sets. I found that really getting in the weeds and investing in my employees, not just their wants and hopes for the job, but even just their daily gripe, just like what's bothering you today. The neighbor was cutting the grass at 6:30 in the morning and woke you up early. Just get to know them and talking to them, but also the important stuff like where do you want to be in 5 years? And if it's retired, that's a perfect answer, because I think the success of a public agency is shown in folks who make it successfully to retirement. But if it's you want to be city manager or something else in the future, how do we get you there? How do we get you the training, the education? How do we invest in you for your success, which of course is then their family's success? I found that's become really important to me and would follow through to the treasurer's office. I want to see the folks in the office succeed.
Right. Well, we do have another question from the audience. So this is a sort of a question of educating us. What percent of the county budget is comprised of property taxes, and what are other sources of revenue that the county treasurer oversees? So Taylor, I guess you're first on this one.
So this is a good question. I don't come with the percentages. There, of course, the treasurer collects a substantial substantial amount of property taxes, including for the schools, for the cities, the villages, townships, the county itself. I don't have the percentage of what percentage of the county's budget is property tax, but it's substantial. I know that, considering the amount of millage. If you check your property tax bill, the parcel, the property card online, they now break down the amount that goes to each entity. But I'll tell you, there's some other very substantial sources of income for the county, which includes funding from state and federal agencies for things like children's services. There are the gas tax revenues, as well as what you pay. Part of what you pay at the BMV gets handed over to the county engineer's office, but also a portion of our gas tax comes down, gets passed to the county engineer's office. I don't know the percentage, but I know there's also a significant amount of activity over at places like the sheriff's office for different reasons. I'm sure those are important to the budget too, but I don't have the percentages with me tonight.
Okay.
I'm like Taylor. I do not have the exact percentages. Who would have thought that question would have come up? It's a good one. It is. And the type of person I am, I'm not Taylor. Guess what? I'll be researching tomorrow. But just like Taylor, I know property taxes is a big portion of our revenue for the county. But like you mentioned, there's pretty much anything out there that is taxed, some type of portion, it comes back to the counties. But as he also mentioned, we have grants that come in, different things down from the state level that helps. Now, because our investments generate revenue and stuff. So I will, like I said, without having the percentages in front of me either, I would say property taxes is probably one of the higher part of it, but it's not the only portion of our revenue.
Right. Okay, thank you both. I'm going to ask one more question that kind of follows along the same spirit of this question, an educational one. There is something called a county budget commission, and the treasurer is a member of that commission. Can you explain what the function of that commission is? They obviously don't decide the taxes, because you explained that the people do that with their votes. So what does the county budget commission do?
Well, since I've never attended one of their meetings, I don't 100% know everything they do, but I do know that they are a committee that sets the budget for each county office. It has to be the bad person at times to say, no, you're not allowed to have that much money. Try again. And certifies and appropriates the funds for properly. So, like I said, there's multiple different committees that the treasurer is part of, with the budget commissioner being just one of them.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Taylor.
Well, I'll say one of the important roles of the Budget Commission that I work with them frequently on, multiple times a year, is that I work with the Budget Commission with the City of Nelsonville's budget. So although the commission doesn't necessarily get, what's the word I want to use? They don't get the final say in how the City of Nelsonville, or say the villages, townships, divvy up their funds in the end. They do play an important oversight role in what's called the certification of resources. So we actually have to prove to another board, which happens to be this commission, that if we're going to have a $5 million budget in a village or city in the county, that they have $5 million either there or on the way through something like tax collection to spend that. And then you receive your certificate of resources, and you have to store it for the state audit. I personally have to show mine to city council, and sometimes I use that certificate to put the brakes on a conversation with council when they say we want to do this major something, fill in the blank, and that fund is only allowed to spend, say, $200,000 and the project is $300,000. The commission has spoken forcefully there to say, actually, Nelsonville, I don't think you have that kind of money in that fund to take on that project. And so that's one of its important roles. There are, of course, other roles, and they work closely with the county commissioners, the final legislative authority, and the theme of my night, out of time.
Okay, thank you both. So it's time then for us to move to closing statements. And let's see, in the introduction, Dawn, you started. So this time with the closing statements, Taylor, will have you start, and Dawn will follow.
We've got hands from the media people over there.
Oh, we got a question with the media. Go ahead.
Question from the media. If elected, on day one, what is your top priority issue for your first initiation into office?
Did you say the first? So did you say?
On day one, what is your number one priority if elected?
On day one, number one priority. This is a good question. Unpack my box, and more seriously, sit down very thoughtfully and curiously. I think it's important for a public official to lead with curiosity, with the staff first. There's probably going to be other things. There may even be folks who just want to say hi to the new guy, if I'm fortunate enough for it to be me. And I think that's all good and well, and I'll say hi back, but I think the first priority for me would be sit with the staff, understand who they are, get to know them, at least their first names, and later we can learn nicknames and their favorite things and what they do. But I really want to know who they are, how long they've been there, what's their goals, do they have goals, should we set some? And I don't just mean professional, but personal too. Maybe their goals to get back to school. How can this job help you get back to school and to night classes, for example? But my first priority is going to be to get to start getting to know them, introducing myself after getting to know them some, and just talk some about my priorities and style, how I'd like to manage the office, and how we all can plug into not just that strategy, but what I can learn from them too. So I think my first priority is going to be them.
I think Taylor hit it right on head. I mean, when we first take over an office, that's the first thing you got to do is get to know your employees, get to know their strengths, their weaknesses, their dreams, their goals. However, the other thing to me that's going to be very important is the other county elected officials in the county to find out what their needs are from a treasurer. What is it that they need and was not getting from the previous administration, so that way we can start working together from day one, because it is a group effort to run the county.
Okay, so now we will move to closing statements, and for this, Taylor, you go first, and Dawn, you will follow.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for the questions, both the audience, the media. Thanks to folks if you're watching. I think this is being streamed. Thanks to folks at home, and of course the league. And thank you to Dawn. I'll close with a couple quick things. I'm Taylor Sappington. If we don't know that yet, I'm running to be county treasurer. I want to be your county treasurer. I'm the Democrat on the ballot this fall. And frankly, between both my education here at Ohio University as twice a Bobcat, as we like to say, and my years of experience in City Hall, including multiple years on the Finance Committee, chairing the Finance Committee, almost a decade's worth of budgeting at City Hall, which can be challenging at times, and my years as fiscal officer. I would like to take my education and my experience and put it to work for all of Athens County in a good way that not just that I can be proud of, but that everybody can be proud of. And even on the days that I have to give the answer that you might need but might not want, right? Because I think a good public official has to do that too. I hope to earn your vote this fall, this November. We're coming up on it early. If you're early voting, we're really coming up on it. And frankly, I just want to say, I've been here. My first experience in politics was knocking on doors for Commissioner Lenny Eliason, who is here. Thanks for coming. And folks like him got me involved, and my mom got me involved in democracy and caring for people, and more importantly than just caring, putting yourself out there in a vulnerable way and standing up for them and doing the right thing even when it's hard. I believe not just in those principles, I believe in our county, I believe in our democracy, and frankly, I would really be honored to take all of that history and experience and serve you as your county treasurer for the next 4 years, and hopefully longer if you'll have me. Thank you.
Like Taylor said, I want to thank the media and all the people that came in tonight to listen to our forum here. But I also would like to say thank you to my family for coming and supporting me. I want to emphasize that my goals for the office would be to make the taxpayers the number one priority, to help them understand what it is that the treasurer's office does, to make it feasible for them to understand, because a lot of people, the average citizen, doesn't understand what our job is or how we go about doing it, and that's going to be important to make sure that they understand, and if they don't understand, find a way to put it in their language so that they can understand. I want to be the full-time, hands-on treasurer that's there 8 to 4. That's what you're being elected to do. I always feel, and I do it in my businesses now, if I'm not willing to do the work myself, I can't expect my employees to be willing to do it. So you need to be actually hands-on, answer their questions, be that tough person. You know, all the stuff falls on our shoulders. We're the last person in line there that gets to help them if our employees can't. I want to help them. So I also wanted to mention, like Taylor said, that our education and his education speaks volumes, and so does mine. I'm also actually getting ready to sit for the CPA exam. I went back to school later in life to finish my education, but I still did it. But a trust in me is a trust in a brighter future. And just remember that you have to physically write in my name. I am a write-in candidate, and that is important. So you will not see my name on the ballot. You do have to physically write my name down and color the little bubble.
So I'd like to close this forum by thanking both of the candidates very much for their participation in our democratic process and for your willingness to serve the public. And I would also like to extend our thanks to the City of Athens Government Channel staff, including Ryan Schwarzkopf and Jason Duda, for recording this event. It was live streamed on the City of Athens Facebook site and YouTube. And it will be, the recording will be viewable on the City of Athens YouTube channel and its Facebook page. The League of Women Voters of Athens County Facebook page, and will be replayed on the government channel, channel 1024. Okay? So, and finally, I'd like to thank you all, the people of Athens County, for submitting thoughtful questions and for joining us to learn more about these candidates. We urge all of you to make a voting plan now. Check your voter registration at voteohio.gov to make sure it's up to date and hasn't been purged. Early in-person voting begins October 8th, and Election Day is November 5th. Thank you all, and have a good night.